My mom texted, "You've always been difficult. We're changing the locks. Stay away." I replied, "Copy that. But you might want to check the solar panel lease." Then I canceled the auto pay and transferred the $21,000 debt back into their names. The solar company emailed them a lien warning. Their lawyer followed with, "This could cost the house." I never responded. Because it was too late. 6 days later. It started 3 weeks after I bailed them out of foreclosure. Yeah. Foreclosure. There were 3 payments behind on the mortgage and the bank had already sent a final warning. My dad was still acting like it wasn't a big deal, like the bank was bluffing, but Mom called me crying one night after I got off work. She didn't ask directly, but I knew what she wanted. I wired the payment the next morning. $3,221. Gone. No questions asked. That wasn't the first time. I've always helped. Groceries, gas money, utility bills. Hell, I bought them a new dishwasher last Thanksgiving when the old one broke down mid-cycle. They never thanked me for anything. Not really. It was always brushed off like it was expected, like that's what sons were supposed to do. But then came the argument. It started over the light in the hallway. I left it on after coming home late. My mom said something like, "We're not running a hotel." Then Dad jumped in, dragged up everything from how long I'd been living there to my attitude. Said I acted like I was doing them a favor by being around. I didn't even argue back. I just went to my room and closed the door. Figured they were stressed. The next morning I got the text. Just like that. "You've always been difficult. We're changing the locks. Stay away." No call. No warning. No. "Let's talk." Just that. I was on my break at the hospital, dead tired and already running on fumes when I read it. I just stared at the screen for a while. Not surprised exactly, more like numb. So I replied. "Copy that. But you might want to check the solar panel lease." That was it. A year and a half earlier they had wanted solar panels. Said it would lower bills, add value to the house. Only problem. Their credit was trashed. Couldn't get approved. So they asked me. Said it would help the whole family. Bet they'd cover the payments. I signed the lease. $123 a month. Autopay from my card. They stopped paying after 4 months. I didn't say anything. Just covered it. Like I always did. That same day I got the text, I logged into Sunbridge's portal and canceled the autopay. Then I submitted a request to transfer the lease back into their names. I didn't hear anything for 4 days. Then they got the first email. Notice of non-payment. $21,000 still owed. Lien process beginning. 2 days after that their lawyer emailed them. This could cost the house. He wrote. They freaked. Of course they did. Started calling around the family. Painting me like the villain. Told them I was unstable, bitter, taking revenge for being kicked out. They left out the part where they begged me to take on their debt and then turned around and threw me out like garbage. I didn't respond. Not to them. Not to the lawyer. Not to the aunt who texted. "What's going on with your parents?" Because I knew exactly what was happening. The mask was slipping. For the first time someone besides me was seeing who they really were. And it was only the beginning. By the end of the week it wasn't just a threat. The lien was real. Filed, stamped, and visible on the county records. Sunbridge didn't waste time. The moment the payment stopped and I dumped the lease back into their names, they followed protocol. It triggered a red flag with the mortgage company almost immediately. The same mortgage company I'd bailed them out from 3 weeks before. The lien notice was mailed to the house and emailed to them. I knew the timing because their lawyer tried to call me within 2 hours. His name's Richter, some friend of my dad's from back when they thought networking meant something. He left a message that said, "Andrew, this could cost your parents their home. You need to call me back." I didn't. Not out of pettiness. I just didn't see the point. They'd made it clear I wasn't family anymore. Why would I take a call about their problems? I stayed silent. Let the weight of their own choices catch up to them. Meanwhile I was sleeping at Uncle Dennis' place. Now he's the guy they all like to forget exists until they need something fixed. He runs a small plumbing business out of his garage, keeps to himself, owns his house outright, drives a beat-up old Ford with a cracked windshield. My mom's always looked down on him. Said he had no ambition. But when they kicked me out and everything blew up, he just said, "You want the guest room or the couch?" Didn't ask for a story. Didn't ask for rent. While I was at Dennis, I kept tabs on the fallout without getting involved. Elise, my cousin on mom's side, called to tell me things were getting ugly. My parents had started calling around asking family for money, trying to pass it off like they just hit a rough patch. They didn't mention the lien or the solar lease. Just said something vague about property taxes and a bad investment. They even tried to make it sound like I was going through a mental episode. And they were worried about me. It didn't work on Elise. She's sharp. She remembered all the times mom badmouthed Dennis behind his back even while taking his help for free. She also remembered how they treated me growing up like a spare part they could use when needed. Then came the next move. The desperate one. They sent Tom to Dennis' house. Tom is one of Dad's favorites. Works in real estate, drives Elise BMW, always acts like he's too busy to finish a sentence. Showed up out of nowhere. Just to check in. Said he wanted to talk about the family. Dennis didn't even let him pass the porch. Told him to leave and not come back unless he brought food. That night 2 of Dennis' tires were slashed. No note. Just 2 clean punctures and a rusted folding knife tossed near the driveway. They didn't even bother hiding it. Dennis didn't say anything at first. Just fixed the tires himself and installed cameras the next day. But I could tell it got to him. Not because of the damage, but because of what it meant that the people we were dealing with weren't just desperate. They were reckless. He never said it out loud, but I knew he thought it was them. Or someone they'd put up to it. And I agreed. Then something shifted in me. Up until that moment I'd been reacting. Watching. Waiting. Now I was ready to act. If they wanted to escalate this, fine. I knew things they'd spend years trying to hide. Financial secrets, legal shortcuts, debts they shuffled around like cards at a rigged table. They'd made me the villain. So I decided to become one. The house was under review by the mortgage company now, and it wasn't just about the solar lien anymore. The lien had triggered a reassessment. Paperwork surfaced. Missed payments, late fees, unexplained financial activity. The bank requested additional documents from my parents. And from what Elise told me, the panic in that house was thick enough to choke on. I didn't have to lift a finger. They were unraveling all on their own. Uncle Dennis, meanwhile, stayed calm. He kept working like nothing had happened, but I could see he was keeping watch. Installed another camera at the back gate. Put in motion lights along the side path. The kind of quiet steps a man takes when he knows what's coming but doesn't want to say it out loud. Then things escalated again. Elise called to say that my parents had started calling around to relatives who weren't even in the country. Cousins in Ontario and aunt in Puerto Rico. Asking for loans, saying they were at risk of losing the house because I'd committed some kind of fraud. That's the word they used. Fraud. Only problem. It wasn't fraud. Everything I did was logged. Approved. Within Elise's terms. Transferring responsibility when the primary lessee stops payment. That's SunGrid policy. And there were records of every payment I made on their behalf. Receipts, bank statements, confirmation emails. All tied to my name, my account. So I printed it all. Every page. I mailed a copy to Richter, their lawyer, with a note that said in case they left this out. No signature. No return address. Just documentation. After that it went quiet for 3 days. Dead silent. Then I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was my dad. Burner phone probably. It said, "We need to talk. Face to face. Don't bring Dennis." I didn't respond. Instead I called a friend of mine from work, Jesse. He used to be a cop, now he does security consulting. I asked him what would happen if a lien triggered a default clause in a mortgage agreement. He said if the bank sees a risk of non-payment they'll demand full resolution. If your parents can't pay, they're done. That's what I thought. So I started pushing. I knew my dad had an undeclared side business. Little construction gigs he did for cash never reported to the IRS. He kept records though. Bad ones. Stored them in his old laptop. The one he thought I didn't know the password to. But I fixed that computer once and he never changed the password back. I logged and screenshot everything and sent copies anonymously to the IRS whistleblower hotline. Not because I wanted them destroyed. Because I wanted them cornered. They'd played the victim. Lied to the family. Attacked the one person who had bailed them out again and again. It was time to see how they acted with no more lifelines. And it worked. By the end of that week, Elise told me they were scrambling. Dennis got a call from an old friend of my dad's, someone I'd never even met. The guy said he'd been asked to float them a bridge loan, but he wanted to know what was really going on. Dennis told him flat out. Don't. They're in a mess they built themselves. That same night someone broke a window at Dennis's place. Didn't take anything. Didn't even come inside. Just smashed the glass and ran. Dennis called the cops this time. Filed the report. Gave them the footage from the camera. The guy had worn a hoodie and mask, but we recognized the walk. It was Tom. Dennis didn't say much. Just stared at the video for a long time, then shook his head. They're not going to stop. He said. Not until everything burns. And I think he was right. After the window was broken, Dennis changed. Not in a loud way. Just quieter, more careful. He stopped sleeping with his phone off. He kept a crowbar next to the door. I didn't ask if he was scared. He'd never admit it. But I saw the tension in his jaw when he locked up for the night. Meanwhile, my parents were in freefall. The lien had pushed their mortgage into technical default. The lender sent a notice of intent to accelerate the loan, which is code for we're about to foreclose. Elise got her hands on a copy from her mom, who got it from my mom, who finally cracked and started crying over the phone. First time in years. She didn't cry when they kicked me out. But now that the house was at risk, suddenly it was tears and phone calls and fake humility. Elise organized the family meeting. Said enough was enough. Said we needed to talk. Dennis and I didn't want to go, but we did. Partly because Elise asked and partly because I was curious how far they'd go. The meeting was at Aunt Lydia's house. Neutral ground. Sunday afternoon, everyone sitting in plastic chairs in her backyard like it was a barbecue, except nobody was eating. When we arrived, everyone got quiet. Mom looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. And the first words out of her mouth weren't "I'm sorry." They were "This has all been blown out of proportion." She tried to spin it. Said they didn't mean to cut me off, they were just under pressure. That kicking me out was a miscommunication. Dad said I overreacted. By involving Elise. Elise didn't let them get far. She stood up and read out loud from the lien notice. Then she read from the IRS response letter I'd received. They were opening a preliminary inquiry based on the submitted evidence. She didn't know I was the one who sent it, but she knew I had access. That's when everything exploded. My parents panicked. Dad shouted. Mom cried again. They accused me of trying to ruin them, of wanting them homeless. Said I was manipulated, that Dennis had poisoned me against them. Tom tried to speak up, but Elise shut him down immediately. She'd seen the security footage. He couldn't deny it anymore. And then unexpectedly the rest of the family started turning. Not all at once, but slowly. Lydia, who always kept out of drama, asked my parents why they didn't tell anyone about the lien. My uncle Greg asked why they'd asked him for money but left out that the house might be taken. Even Aunt Rosa, who once swore Dad could do no wrong, looked at them like she was seeing something new. Dennis didn't say a word the entire time. He just watched. When it was over, Elise pulled me aside. Told me something I didn't expect. She and Greg were going to cover the lease balance. Not for my parents, but for the sake of the house. They didn't want the family home taken by a lender. They'd pay Sundry directly, clear the lien, then have a lien of their own placed until my parents repaid them in full. It was ruthless. And perfect. That night Dennis grilled burgers and handed me a beer. Said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I told him I didn't feel like I'd won anything. Because I hadn't. Not yet. The payment went through that Tuesday. Greg and Elise wired the full amount directly to Sundry. The lien was cleared by Thursday morning. Just like that, the threat of foreclosure disappeared. But so did the illusion of sympathy. Greg didn't just stop at covering the debt. He had his lawyer draw up a lien agreement of his own, this time on behalf of him and Elise. It was airtight. If my parents missed even a single payment toward repaying the $21,000, Greg would move to claim partial ownership of the property. My parents were too stunned to argue. Suddenly they weren't in control of anything. For years they manipulated the family into seeing them as the victims. But now the mask was off. Greg even told them point blank that if they ever came to him for money again without full transparency, he'd take them to court. Then came the real blow. Uncle Dennis got a call from an investigator. Not the cops, federal. The IRS had flagged one of my dad's under-the-table jobs. A roofing contract he did 6 months ago, supposedly off books. The guy who hired him had been audited and dropped Dad's name to save himself. Combined with the documents I submitted, it was enough for them to open a formal case. Dennis asked if I knew anything about it. I didn't lie. He just nodded and said they're going to drown in the hole they dug. But the most unexpected thing happened 2 days later. A fire. Not in their house, in their garage. It started late at night. No one was hurt, but half the garage went up in smoke. Fire department ruled it electrical, but I didn't buy it. They kept all their old papers in there. Records. Maybe Dad panicked. Maybe he tried to burn something and lost control. Or maybe someone else did it to scare them. Nobody could say for sure. Insurance refused to pay out. The wiring hadn't been up to code, and there was no inspection on record for the recent work Dad claimed to have done. That's when it all cracked. They went back to the family again. This time not asking for help, but blaming everyone. Blamed Greg for stealing their house, blamed Elise for airing dirty laundry, and blamed Dennis for turning Andrew against us. They even left a voicemail for me. My mom's voice, warped with anger, said, "We should have never trusted you. You were never ours. Never ours." Like I was a stray they picked up and regretted. Dennis listened to it with me, then deleted it. But the worst wasn't the fire or the IRS or the money. It was the letter. A handwritten one sent to Dennis's house in a cheap envelope. No return address. Just one sheet of paper. It read, "You should have died instead of Dad." Dennis's face didn't move when he read it. He handed it to me and walked out into the yard. Stood there for a long time, just staring out at the road. Didn't say a word for the rest of the night. That letter changed everything. Because I realized something: this wasn't about money anymore. This wasn't about the lease or the house or pride. It was rot. Deep old rot that ran through every beam of their lives. And maybe, just maybe, they were finally beginning to smell it. But redemption? I still wasn't sure they were capable of it. 3 quiet weeks passed. Long, strange days where nothing blew up, no messages came through, no sudden slash tires or late-night phone calls from blocked numbers. It felt unnatural. The kind of calm you get after a tornado, when everything's flattened and you can't tell if the worst already happened or if another one's on the way. Then Elise sent a text. "They want to talk." At Lydia's. Family only. No drama in the message. No pressure. Just a statement. I didn't answer, but I showed up. Dennis came too. I think he felt like I shouldn't walk in there alone, even if it wasn't that kind of war anymore. Aunt Lydia's house looked the same as it always had. Faded couch, thick curtains, stale coffee on the stove. Everyone was already there when we got there. My mom and Dad sat side by side on the couch like they were back in church. Elise and Greg were across from them, arms folded. Aunt Rosa was off to the side, quiet for once. Lydia stood in the kitchen doorway like she was ready to intervene. I sat. Dennis stood. My mom started talking almost immediately. She said they were sorry. For the text. For the locks. For the way they treated me. She listed things like she'd been rehearsing. The solar lease. The lies. Kicking me out after everything I'd done for them. She didn't cry this time. Her voice was steady, flat. My dad jumped in after her, apologized too. Said I'd always been generous. That they were ashamed of how they handled things. That they didn't know how bad it had gotten until it was too late. They said they were grateful to Greg and Elise for covering the lien. That they were working with the IRS. That they were making monthly payments on time and that they'd pay back every dollar they owed. They even admitted to sending Tom over to Dennis's and said it was a mistake. That they didn't ask him to do anything but they shouldn't have involved him at all. Then they said something about family being sacred. That we needed to rebuild. Everyone listened. Most of them seemed moved. Elise actually looked like she might cry. Greg didn't, but his jaw relaxed. Aunt Rosa said she was proud of them for taking responsibility. And even Lydia nodded slowly like she was willing to forgive if the words were real. But I sat there thinking about the voicemail. The one where Mom said I was never really theirs. About the letter Dennis got. About the slashed tires. About the way my dad used to look at me when I came home from work with groceries like I was supposed to. Like I owed them. And the more they talked, the more I realized something. They weren't sorry they hurt me. They were sorry the family saw them do it. They were sorry for what it cost. The money. The house almost being taken. The IRS. The lost control. The power shift. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted restoration. They wanted to go back to when I was the son who paid without asking. Who kept quiet. Who took the abuse because. It's just how things are. When it ended, my dad looked right at me and said, "We hope you can forgive us." I looked at him, then at Mom, and said nothing. Not out of malice. Just clarity. Because I've seen this show before. The act of contrition. The clean-up campaign. The carefully timed apologies with just enough emotion to win back the people watching. Everyone else believed them. I didn't. I left with Dennis. We didn't talk in the car. Not at first. But when we got to his driveway, he turned off the ignition and said, "That wasn't for you. That was for them." I nodded. Because it was true. That night I sat alone in the guest room and thought about how things end. Not with closure. Not with justice. Just the shift in how people pretend. I knew I'd be getting another call one day. A birthday message maybe. A family holiday. Or a sudden "we need help." And maybe, just maybe, I'll come back here with an update. Because people like them don't change. They just wait. One update. It took exactly 3 weeks. 21 days of silence. No calls, no texts, no drama. For a minute I almost believed maybe they'd finally left me alone. I was wrong. Last Friday I got a letter. Not from my parents. From the county. A notice that a quitclaim deed had been filed. Transferring partial ownership of the house to me. I thought it was a mistake. I called the clerk's office and confirmed it. Legit filing. My dad had signed over 25% ownership of the property in my name effective immediately. No warning. No heads up. Just legal paperwork dropped on my doorstep like a bomb. I thought maybe they were trying to give me something. An apology in the form of real estate. But I knew better. So I dug deeper. Dennis helped me look into the timing, and what we found didn't surprise me. Their mortgage company had reviewed their new repayment plan, the one Greg and Elise forced on them, and decided the house was still too risky unless they could show family co-ownership with stable financial standing. In plain English, they needed my name on the deed to make the bank back off. They didn't call to ask. Didn't explain. They just signed me up. Probably figured I wouldn't fight it. I should have expected it. I should have seen it coming the moment my dad looked me in the eye and said they hoped I could forgive them. That look wasn't regret. It was calculation. But here's the part one didn't see coming. A few hours after I got the letter, Dennis got one too. It was from a lawyer. My dad had listed Dennis as a co-signer for a small business loan application that he never even submitted. Someone used Dennis' name and ID to try and apply for a $30,000 line of credit. They were denied, but it triggered a fraud alert. The bank had to notify Dennis directly. Same week. Same timing. I don't believe in coincidence. And neither does Dennis. Now it's not just about the house. Now it's identity theft. And it's criminal. Dennis filed a police report. I called the lawyer who helped Greg with the lien agreement and had them draft a rejection of the deed. I never signed for it, never agreed to it, and now I'm submitting a legal request to reverse the ownership transfer. So here we are. Again. They tried to ruin me. Again. They tried to use Dennis. Again. The fake apology was just a pause before the next play. The only thing that changed was their tactics. Quieter. More complicated. But still the same underneath. I'm more tired than angry now. Tired of cleaning up behind them. Tired of trying to make people see what they really are. But I'm also ready. And if this is going where I think it is, I'll be back.